You. So I am so excited for really module one of this incredible course that I was saying before I hit record. I literally feel like I was born to teach these things because so much of this has been my life for so long, for 2 decades now of creating this harmony in my life. And I've come up with these really special, unique observations and insights over my travels and over my years and over my experiences that I want to offer you today. Probably the first time you've heard it this way. And I'm really excited for it because it's another reflection point. So much of being the architect and building your blueprint, I will give you tactical, tangible things to implement into your life and business. That's coming. But we have to start with reflection to really decide, where am I at? How am I feeling? What do I desire? What no longer fits? Because it's the shedding that allows, the things that we desire to rise to the occasion and to rise to the top. And so I start this one with a personal insight that I feel is really relevant and a really beautiful way to spark reflection. And that is expectations versus responsibilities. So, expectations versus responsibilities to me are two totally radically different things. Expectations to me mean something outside of myself, either perceived or factual. So, I may perceive that someone has an expectation of me. For example, that my client expects me to answer right away in Voxer every time they come in. That might be a perceived expectation, not true, but I've planted that seed, or I've created that for myself. Or it could, in fact, be an expectation that a client's saying, I've been in your Voxer. And, and my son's a perfect example. Let's say this, my teenage son, where if I don't answer him right away, I get the question marks, hello, until I answer. It's my favorite. Not at all. I actually, that's like a big button for me. But, that's an expectation, but it's outside of ourselves. So when we're living through expectations, that's where we often get triggered into our people pleasing, those childhood wounds. Good morning, Tammy. Those childhood wounds, those things that still can be activated and not necessarily in our favor. So those are expectations. Responsibility, and I actually want to define responsibility because I feel like it's got a bad rap. And I actually really love responsibility. I feel like to be responsible for things is a level of control that I really desire, because most of the times I can control those things versus expectations I can't, because it's outside of myself. But responsibility means accountability, acting independently, and making decisions. So think about that: accountability, independent action, and making decisions. All the things that the CEO of life and business must do in order to have a great response or a great outcome. I attach responsibility to standards of excellence. And that's really what this module is about: standards of excellence. And it's really beautiful that I'm teaching this right now, because the word for 2024 for myself is excellence. So this was really fun for me to think about this morning and contemplate with you, because there have been some shifts even in what I decide are standards of excellence. But those standards then become the quality, the level of excellence that we lead our responsibility with. So can you see how that ties together? Expectations are outside of ourselves. So those are those shoulds. People pleasing, a lot of childhood wounds show up in this. We're acting out of alignment, sometimes out even of integrity. Where responsibility matched with standards of excellence means we are acting independently, making choice, making decisions, being accountable, and really doing things through excellence, through quality. And so if we can reflect on that, and I'll come back to it at the end with some opportunity to sit with this and ask yourself, but I want to tie it together with the teachings of today. But this is so important for you to start making a distinction between, because this is where all of a sudden you start to melt away a lot of things that have been tying you and tethering you to actions, to do's, things that you are acting upon daily that no longer fits, is no longer a part of the journey, no longer part of the day, no longer part of the schedule. So when I think about it, I think, okay, so there's an equation here that I love: accountability plus taking action equals quality and level of excellence. So write that down as an equation for yourself. Maybe you can put that somewhere on a sticky note while you practice this over and over again. But accountability plus taking action equals quality and level of excellence, because accountability and taking action is responsibility. We remember that. Those are the ingredients to responsibility, which then leads to the quality and excellence of our lives. So, as we strip away the shoulds, what you'll often find is ways that you are chasing. So those expectations often prompt us or sort of push us into this chasing mode. It looks like chasing weight loss. If I lose 10 pounds, then I will. It looks like chasing money. Once I make more money, then I will. It looks like chasing a bag. Once I have a designer bag, I will look more like. All these things that we're putting outside of ourselves, as though those are the antidotes to the happiness, the fulfillment, the joy, the responsibility and standards that we have, when we know this. We know these things are not going to create the feeling. Sure, health in terms of weight loss, sure, that might be something to support your health and well being. But I know for a long time in my career, I felt like I had to physically look a certain way in order to have this type of success that I saw online. Anybody else fall into that? Like we at back in 2020, 2021, it was like there was this avatar online, and most of us don't fit that avatar. And there was something that happened in my mind as I was observing this, where it was like, oh my goodness, my age, even my hair color, my physical body, like it doesn't match that which I'm seeing. And thank God it's not like that anymore in the online space. Thank goodness we've had a really big shift, and we got rid of a lot of that. And the popularity now is through value and showing up and being in that personal responsibility versus a physical appearance. But for a long time, I chased that. I literally gave over my power to weight loss over contribution. And I say these things, I'm going to tell a lot of stories through this program, because that's how we're going to connect, and we're going to start to identify those things for ourselves. But what I'd love us to start doing is putting our purpose, putting our focus, putting the pursuit into the way we want to feel every day, the desires we have, and the way we want to show up for our relationships, our business. And those things take precedence. They start to be where we put the focus, where we have that tunnel vision, because that's what's really going to make everything feel so good in our bodies. It's not necessarily the weight loss, it's the desire I felt, the deserving that I felt like I needed to earn, the worthiness I felt like I needed to gain. But I realized we're all born worthy. Every single one of us. That was our God given birthright. Cute, just like, it's like breath in my lungs. We are not having to work for this. This is not something we need to go and acquire. It is. And so, if it is, how can we embody and be more of that, which is really, really the question here? Because if it is, and we know this, why is it so difficult to be embodied in that? And again, it's those things outside of ourselves that we give precedence to. So I believe productivity is sexy. I do. I have a very different outlook on work ethic, grit, grind. I think those things are sexy when they are aligned. Most of the time we attach those things, or we feel discomfort, or we feel like, oh, it's the masculine, when we're doing things that are unaligned, when we're chasing something that really isn't going to cause fulfillment in our soul and in our spirit. And so for me, we got to bring the sexy back. And how do we do that? By really refocusing and bringing our attention back and reflection back to what fits, what is expired, where do I want to be, how do I want to feel, who do I want to be day in and day out, and what is distracting me from those things. And all of a sudden now we're hungry and excited for the work. But it's when we're out of alignment that I believe a lot of times we start to feel the tings, the pings of hustle, overwhelm, etc. It's not productivity that causes that. It's the mismatched alignment that causes that, when we're not really surfacing our goals, our intentions, our biggest why. So, one of the things that I have done for pursuing the feeling in my day and pursuing that above and beyond any of these things that have distracted me is I do, then feel. Because if we think about feelings, we got to break this down a little bit. If we think about feelings, like I want to pursue it. If I think of core values, feelings, fulfillment is like the number one word. I want to feel fulfillment, which means to me joy, happiness, presence, excitement, I'm on fire for life. I have energy. These are the things. But then we can't always lead with feelings, because if we do in our business and we wake up one day and we're in a funk, we're feeling a little tired, something's happened in our personal life. If we lead by feelings through that, we could actually dampen or even potentially hurt the process, the momentum, and the gains that we have already generated. So for me, it's what is the desired feeling? I hone in on that, but then I do first feel next in my business. And this practice, it's a bit of a dance, but when I do first feel, I've realized that very rarely, to me, business is a lot like a workout. Very rarely do I wake up and I'm like, yes, 8 hours of calls today. I can't wait to sit in front of a Zoom and have that ring light in my eyeballs for 8 hours. This is going to be a great day. I mean, that's very rare. I mean, am I excited to see the faces I'm going to see? 100%. Am I necessarily really excited about my day today where I'm literally, actually, I think it's 9 hours, I'm in front of Zoom today? Not necessarily. But when I do first, then feel, here's what's going to happen. I know for sure by the end of this day, my heart is going to be so big, and I'm going to just be like so joyful for the contribution I created, the partnerships, the conversations, the breakthroughs. And so I know I've got to do first because I'll feel after. And I feel this way with workouts. I don't know the last time I'm like, I can't wait to get down there on that Peloton bike and work and sweat and lift some weights. And, I no, for me, it's, I've got to do it first because I know on the other side of that, I'm going to feel so proud of myself. I'm going to feel so glad I did. So sometimes we have to play with feelings a little bit, especially when those limiting feelings could potentially lead. We got to do first to get rid of them, and that's that sexy productivity. It's like tricking the whole mind of no, 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 I'm not going to get in my way of Zoom calls. Instead, I'm going to do this knowing what I'm going to bring forward in terms of feeling at the end. So just a little piece of I suppose advice that has really worked well for me throughout this entire experience of building my life and business. And for me, if I don't do this, it's also too where I could potentially be driving my day with the e-brake on, with the emergency brake on. Have you ever seen that on a highway or a freeway? I don't understand it. It is a something I just need to figure out. How can your brake lights be on when we're going at this speed? What's going on here? But to me, what that indicates is someone is like preparing for something horrible to happen. It's like I've got my foot ready on the brake, and they're driving in defense. And so if we drive our life in defense, that's where we really like we don't see the scenery. That person is not enjoying the drive, the path, the journey. Instead, they're white knuckling their steering wheel. I'm sure of it. They're probably those ones that sit way too close to the steering wheel. You know those ones? It's like you're good. It's like, I think you need to sit back a little bit. This is dangerous. But that feeling of I want to be in control because the expectation of something could happen versus I am responsible. I'm in the driver's seat. I am going to enjoy this journey. It is a totally different experience. So let me pull this into now something that is very unique and special to me, something that has really supported me in my coaching and mentorship. So if you are in that role in any capacity, which I would say we all are, because sometimes maybe you're not a mentor in terms of clients, but you mentor your children, your families, your relationships, your teams. So this really does encompass all people. I believe there's seasons of productivity in both business and life. And so I want to walk you through these seasons. We're going to do business first, life second, and I'm going to talk to you about reflecting on these things through the lens of responsibility and standards of excellence. So when we think of the seasons of productivity in business, the first one to me is learning. So if I think of the season of learning, it's very quiet. I think of consuming, listening, discerning. I'm a student. I'm not necessarily producing outwardly. Instead, I am gathering information. I am in the learning. I'm building my skill. And this is a quiet season in business. And so it should be. You might have this season still sprinkled in as you're in the other ones. That's okay. We're all students. I believe personal growth and development for any CEO and entrepreneur is a leading value. But there are these times where we just get quiet, insular. And so there's times where we have to look at the responsibilities, the standards of excellence, and almost remove the expectation that I have to show up. I have to be doing something. Have you ever felt that in your business where you're just your soul is craving to learn, maybe even just this course, this program here, you're like, I'm in this room, I'm craving this. I really want to become the architect. And so it's not about necessarily showing up online and teaching these things and doing these things. You can be doing this behind the scenes. You can be quiet. You have full permission to do so. And as a matter of fact, I highly recommend it. The greatest innovation and creativity comes in the quiet, period. It is. It just is. And so when we're in this season, we're saying, what are my responsibilities here? What are some things that I can do of excellence here for myself? And what can I strip away in terms of expectations that will rob me of this experience, this season in my business? The second one is building. So some people call it scaling. I like calling it building, especially with the architect. I mean, this is what we're doing. We're building. And so building really is when you're starting to stack and action and produce. And it can be that time in your life and in your business where you are really in the deep end because you're now maybe launching a course, doing a brand, showing up and building content. Like you're in the doing, the actioning. And so, what there is a personal responsibility. What are the standards of excellence you want to live through? And what expectations can you maybe remove? Maybe the expectation is of taking courses. Maybe your expectation you need to remove is, you know what, right now I'm in the stacking, I'm in the doing. My consumption is not going to be the same in season two as it was in season one. Removing that expectation that you always have to be learning. Instead, it's the trust of I've learned, let me apply these things. And I feel like that is such a beautiful thing. This is a time too, just to give you a heads up, where when I work with people often, they start to get in their own way. When they're in the building, the doing, the stacking, like the grit, the deep end of building a business, we can start to resist it and start to actually sabotage. So it comes in the form of, oh my goodness, I don't want to have burnout. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I'm starting to feel like there's a lot going on. And so the story